Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of the DFO DFS Report. It is Wednesday, January the 22nd. I hope everyone's having a fine Wednesday afternoon. Admittedly, first couple shows of the week, a little bit low energy. Feeling good today. Feeling like we're going to have a great show. Feel like we're going to have a great night of DFS after a huge takedown on Friday. It's been a little bit slow going here for me this week, Monday, Tuesday. Last night, basically a break-even night. We did a good job finding some of the really nice spots yesterday. But again, the chalk just nuked yet again. Nashville went down very early. So you played UC Saros, RIP to your lineups last night. But then they stormed back in a big way, and that top line did a shitload of damage. But we did talk about Nashville 3 being an interesting pivot spot, and they were very much that. I still don't know if it was enough, though, because nobody else really went off to kind of match Nashville 1 last night. It felt like you kind of needed them. There were some other spots that had some strong nights. Florida 1 was good again. Florida 3 was solid for us, but just, again, not quite to that level of Nashville 1, just absolutely going bananas. What was it, 4 points for Marchessault last night? So, just another ridiculous performance from the chalk. We'll get into all the chalk today. 7 p.m. Eastern start here. We got the New Jersey Devils hosting the Boston Bruins. Jacob Markstrom starts for the Devils. Will be Jeremy Swayman for the Boston Bruins. The Maple Leafs will host the Columbus Blue Jackets. It will be Dennis Hildeby for the Toronto Maple Leafs. It was expected to be Elvis Merzlikins for the Columbus Blue Jackets, although in the morning skate, he did go down in some discomfort. Did leave the ice earlier than usual. The training staff had not yet talked to head coach Dean Evison, so he had no update on who would get the start. To me, I feel like it's probably not going to be Merzlikins. It's probably going to end up being Daniil Tarasov. But then the Blue Jackets team account tweeted out their projected lineups for tonight and had Merzlikins listed as the number one goalie. So that's up in the air. I don't think it matters a ton. I do think Merzlikins is a little bit better than Tarasov, though. So if it ends up being Tarasov, probably a little bit makes Toronto a little bit of a better option tonight. But just keep in mind, if you plan on playing the Blue Jackets goalie as a contrarian play or a leverage play tonight, it could be one of Merzlikins or Tarasov this evening. Mackenzie Blackwood goes for the Colorado Avalanche, likely going to see Connor Hellebuyck for the Winnipeg Jets. The Kings are going to go back to Darcy Kemper tonight, and then we're expecting to see Spencer Knight for the Florida Panthers in the second half of a back-to-back in California for them. Zach, before we get to you, this one's pretty wild. I had Saros and still cashed last night. That's how good Nashville 1 was. I think we know who won the head-to-head. Yeah. I full stacked. You had what, just Marchessault?
Yeah, just Marchessault. That was a tough one for me last night to swallow on the head-to-head streets.
I mean, like, hey, at least you can sleep well at night knowing that you picked the right player from Nashville 1, excuse me. So here we go. Let's get into tonight's slate. We've got the New Jersey Devils hosting the Boston Bruins. It'll be the Devils come in at minus 211, 3.4 implied total, 2.4 implied total for the Boston Bruins. Just going to bring these up before we dive right in. New look lines for the New Jersey Devils and poor Jack Hughes. I mean, what is going on here? The coaching staff, Sheldon Keefe and company, said they were looking for a spark. I don't know if Nathan Bastian is that spark necessarily that you're looking for in your top 6, but hey, whatever. This is what we've got tonight. I think it's pretty safe to say that I'm much more interested in New Jersey 2. Let's get into the matchups. We've got pretty decent matchup for that Jack Hughes line, but pretty gross underlying metrics we'll get to in a second. Pretty good matchups across the board for the New Jersey Devils. Top line for the Bruins, which has played very well as of late with the best matchup on that side. They're going to see a little bit more of the Nico Hischier line, a little bit of the Jack Hughes line. Now, the Jack Hughes line, I said the underlying metrics are bad, and that's just offensively. Defensively, though, they grade out tremendously well. I will say there's not a whole lot to go off of here, right? Cotter, Hughes, and Bastian have never played together as a trio, or like not more than a couple of shifts. So there's not a whole lot of data. I had to kind of hodgepodge a sample together just with, Jack Hughes playing with some Cotter, Jack Hughes playing with Bastian in the past, and just kind of put something together. I don't put a ton of stock into these numbers. Obviously, I think you can take something from them, and I think that they're probably going to be pretty reliable defensively and probably pretty meh offensively. I think that's pretty safe to say. Would be shocked this line doesn't make it through the first period, to be honest with you. But one thing we know is that the second line, Nico Heischer's line, has been pretty good all season long, especially when Stefan Nation's up there. Tonight, replacing Timo Meier with Jesper Bratt helps tremendously. These underlying metrics are superb. As I mentioned, they're going to see kind of a mix of the top 6 for the Bruins, a little bit of the third line as well. So kind of a mix of the top 9. The Bruins second and third line pretty poor defensively, so nice matchups there. For New Jersey too, they look like they're in a really, really good spot overall. They grade out as the second best line overall to target tonight, and coming in about half the ownership of Toronto 1, which is the number 1 line overall. But really, really nice line stack here for the New Jersey second line. They also fully correlate on the top power play unit, and they have the number 1 power play advantage of the night. So you've got Bratt, you've got Hischier, and you've got Steph Nation up there on the top power play unit, and a pretty good 5v5 matchup as well. So I really like New Jersey too tonight. To be honest with you, this is kind of a gross slate. You texted me earlier. I think 3 of the 4 games have a implied an over under of 5.5. So there's not a lot of spots that look super, super juicy. New Jersey 2 is one of those kind of limited spots that I just absolutely love tonight.
Yeah, they look like they're in an absolute smash spot. Great power play matchup here for the Devils as well. With that second line, you get full correlation on the top unit. I'll be definitely getting to the field here on the Devils second line, and honestly, probably even a little bit over the field. At 11% ownership, they're coming in as like the 6th highest owned line on this entire slate tonight. I have no problem getting a little bit over the field with them here tonight. It's kind of funny. Like we were talking last night, you and I, about how we keep just jamming in these like pivot low owned option lines. And I was saying to you that I think I'm just going to meet the field on ownership for the next night or two as best as I possibly can, because, continuing to jam in some of these lower owned lines and getting over the field on them hasn't quite been working so well. But I've got some confidence here in the Devils second line. They're grading out as the second best line overall on the slate to target. Nico Hischier, Jesper Bratt, they've had some success against the Bruins. Again, this is one of those games with that low 5.5 total, right? If I'm not mistaken, I think the only one that has a total of 6.5 tonight is the Colorado Winnipeg game, the Toronto Columbus game. So, the books aren't really expecting a ton of offense here tonight on this slate, but I think this Devils second line is probably one that you could account for some of that tonight. They look to be in a great spot here.
Yeah, the under 5.5 is -109 right now in this game, making it the second lowest implied total of the night, the lowest being Florida and LA. Any interest in this Jack Hughes line? Like, it's so difficult to get there, in my opinion. Jack Hughes coming to 18% ownership. I think like I was going to do it. I don't mind maybe a Paul Cotter Jack Hughes mini stack, right? Like Jack Hughes is good enough to just kind of go off on his own. Paul Cotter has had some decent offensive numbers this year at times, and at minimum price, him and Jack Hughes at 11,500 make for a pretty interesting mini stack. I feel pretty comfortable leaving Bastian off, but Bastian's actually the guy drawing more ownership than Cotter. So, like, I don't necessarily love this line, but in a 20 max, I'm certainly mixing them in. And, a full stack of Jack Hughes' line at $14,000 feels pretty good. Matchup at 5v5, like I said, is still quite good. They're going to see a lot more of that third line, which is one of the worst defensive lines for the Boston Bruins. So the matchup's good. Like I said, I'm not going to put too much stock into these metrics because we haven't really seen it. But I'm a little surprised at Cotter and Bastian's ownership. Like, I don't know how long it's going to last, right? Like, it could be one period. It could be the whole game. Who knows? Maybe it works, but I just don't trust Cotter and Bastian that much. But it being just a 4-game slate, I don't mind maybe getting there at about 10%. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I don't mind that either. And honestly, I'm a little surprised that Bastian's the one that's getting a little bit more ownership than Cotter. Mind you, we're talking about like 1.1% more ownership here based off of RotoGrinder's projected ownership. But Cotter's the one who's, been generating a little bit more offense as of late. In his last 20 games, 0.7 goals per hour of ice time. Bastian has 0. One thing that's actually really interesting about Paul Cotter, 4 career games against the Boston Bruins, 3 goals in those games. for whatever reason, loves to play against the Bees. So who knows? Maybe he finds a way onto the board here tonight. But the truth of the matter is that, if you're full stacking New Jersey 1, like, you really don't need a lot for Cotter and Bastian to pay off. They stumble into an assist on a Jack Hughes goal, or one of them find a way to score a goal. You're looking at some serious value there from these guys. So I don't hate the idea at all of mixing some in. For me, I'm only doing 5 lineups tonight. I might have one of my lineups with a Cotter Hughes mini stack. But I've definitely got a little bit more interest in this Devils second line. Just feels like they're in a bit of a better spot overall here in this matchup. But I really don't mind this idea at all. Like, I think it's interesting enough. And like I said, for me, my lean would probably be towards going Cotter Hughes for a mini stack rather than Bastian.
To give you an idea of which one might be a better play in terms of anytime goal scorers tonight, Paul Cotter plus 400, Nathan Bastian plus 600. So the sports books like Cotter a little bit more. There's the same price. I think that would just kind of be my tiebreaker. Who knows, though? Maybe mixing in a plus 400 or plus 600 anytime for these guys, and maybe it works out. Just to give you an idea, Bastian has not scored since October 22nd, 22 consecutive games without a goal. Only 18 shots on goal during that stretch. Granted, all of that time on the fourth line, never with Jack Hughes. Okay, let's get to the Boston Bruins side of things. Actually, I guess we should maybe briefly talk about New Jersey 3. Timo Meier, Justin Dowling, Dawson Mercer. Meier and Mercer still seeing about 8% ownership. Their underlying metrics, though, are horrific. And the matchup is slightly worse than the other two lines. So, I don't really ever even trust Timo Meier all that much when he's playing with Nico Hischier. A little bit less ice time at a similar price tag tonight. I'm probably not getting there at 6K, but are you thinking about it? Like, I think that I would consider it maybe if they were coming in like low owned, but they're pretty similar ownership to the rest of the New Jersey Devils tonight. So I just don't see any reason to do it.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I'll probably be staying off of New Jersey 3 here tonight. I think Meier obviously is the one who's got some shot volume there, 8 shots on goal per hour of ice time over his last 20 games. But that's also kind of come down as of late. The offense hasn't really been there for Meier over this last stretch. And maybe that's why they're, blending up these lines here and trying to find a bit of a mix. But like you said, too, like, it wouldn't entirely surprise me if they kind of went back to some of the lines that we've seen in the past where, Hughes and Brad are together and Meier's up there with Hischier and Nason. So for me, I think I'm probably just sticking to New Jersey 1 and 2. Maybe I'll just go with a Devil's onslaught here and have, New Jersey 2 with Hughes and Cotter in there and hope that they can pop on the power play as well, because they do have a great matchup here tonight. 17th ranked power play over the last 10 games, but they're going up against the Bruins penalty kill that ranks 29th, and they're taking they're shorthanded 3.1 times per game over their last 10. So they can't seem to stay out of the penalty box here. The Devils are definitely a team that can make them pay, even though their power play hasn't necessarily been a huge strong point for them as of late.
Yeah, I think too, like, if we are not really sold on the fact that they're not going to, maybe not keep these lines together, like again, we have no idea. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. But at least if you stack New Jersey too, if they do shuffle them up, you feel fairly strong that you're still in a good spot, right? Like, Stefan Nation's probably going to remain with Hischier all game. I feel fairly certain about that. If Jesper Bratt doesn't stick, he's at least probably going back with Jack Hughes. Like, you're not dead. Where, like, New Jersey 1, if Cotter's back in the third line, Bastian's back in the fourth line by the second period, it's like, okay, what was really the point? Let's get to the Bruins side of things. Top line's got the best matchup. That's really the only line that I have a ton of interest in, and even that is probably pretty modest. But David Pastrnak's been red hot as of late. 9 goals, 7 assists, 17 points in his last 10 games, averaging 18.7 DraftKings points per game during that stretch, not including bonuses. And that is the best on the entire slate. So he's been dynamite. Morgan Geeky's really found his way on that top line as well, just $3,800. He's got 13.7 goals, 6 assists in his last 17 games. Shot volume's been, fairly reasonable. Some games only with 1 shot, but he's mixing a few 4-shot games as well. He's really seemed to found his way since the coaching change. And then Pavel Zacha has been fine as well. So that line, the underlying metrics continue to be pretty solid, not outstanding, but good enough. Converting at a high clip, obviously with David Pastrnak on your line, that's doable. Morgan Geekie shooting like 18% during that stretch as well. So this is a line that's performed pretty well. They grade out 6th best overall. They are drawing a fair amount of ownership, mostly though David Pastrnak at 16.5%. Geekie kind of being left by the wayside at 4.5% at $3,800. I don't really understand that one. I'd probably prefer Geekie over Zacha at a couple $100 more expensive. I get the center him being a center probably factors in there. Not a lot of great cheap center options. So they're probably similar plays to me overall. If I'm playing this line, though, it's probably going to be a full stack or just a David Pastrnak one-off. I don't really feel like choosing between Geekie or Zacha because I'm probably going to choose incorrectly. But yeah, this line feels okay tonight. The matchup's pretty solid. The Devils, obviously a good defensive team, but this Bruins top line at least has been one that's scored goals as of late. You look at the rest of this Bruins lineup, Boston 2 grades out 16th best, Boston 3 24th. There's not a whole lot here for the rest of this lineup. If you want to look at Boston 2, obviously Matthew Poitras is talented young player. Charlie Coyle had no goals in months and then scored 2 his last game. Their minimum price, they're super cheap. I don't trust them all that much. The underlying metrics are okay though. I just don't know how much Boston 2 exposure I'm going to get to. I think I'm going to be limited to Boston 1 for the most part, and even then not getting to a ton. They're coming in at 10% ownership as an average, but Pastrnak at 16.5. What are you thinking here on the Boston side of things tonight?
Yeah, I like getting some Boston 1 in the mix here. It's interesting when you talk about Geekie and Zach and a potential tiebreaker. Shout out Beebs. Spencer Knight getting the start for the Cats tonight. I'll get to that game in a little bit. But again, if you look at Geekie and Zach, as of late over their last 20 games, Geekie scoring a little bit more goals, 1.2 goals per hour of ice time versus Zacha's 0.8. But in this matchup against the Devils in the past, it's actually been Zacha who's had more success. 3 goals and 4 points in 5 games in his career, while Geekie 1 goal and 2 points in 7 games. I think I wouldn't mind getting a little Zacha there and getting that, cheaper center there in the mix at 4K. The Boston Bruins as a whole are kind of interesting as of late. If you look at their last 10 games, 2.59 goals for per hour of ice time for them at 5-on-5. That's the highest of any team on the slate here, even higher than the Colorado Avalanche. So, Boston is very clearly finding some ways to generate some offense and score some goals here as of late. And as we'll see once Brock gets this size properly, there we go. The Devils, the offense is seemingly all but dried up for them. Hence this bit of a spark here tonight. So, or the mix up in the lines rather. So kind of an interesting game here for me, for sure. I think I am going to get some Boston 1 mixed into my 5 lineups here too. And it'll have to be around David Pastrnak. Whether that's a one-off or a mini stack for me tonight, I'm not entirely sure, but I'll definitely be having them in the mix.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at this team chart here over the last 10 games, the Bruins just getting absolutely murdered at 5v5. Their underlying metrics defensively are horrendous. Their penalty kill's been horrendous. So just continue to fire me up on some New Jersey Devils this evening. In terms of the power play for the Bruins tonight, 28th best over the last 10 games, going up against the 18th ranked PK. Overall, second worst power play advantage on the night. Let's get to game number 2. We've got the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Columbus Blue Jackets. The Leafs are minus 195 favorites, 3.7 implied total, 2.7 implied total for the Blue Jackets. We've talked about it a lot this year that the road woes with the Columbus Blue Jackets are just ridiculous. I did tweet out something today. I'll bring it up if you give me a moment here. Way to have it prepped. Real professional. Okay. Road woes this season. 4.02 goals for per game on home ice. 3.04 goals against on home ice. 18th best. So the number 1 scoring team on home ice on the road drops down to 2.36 goals for per game, the 28th best offense in the league, and 29th ranked defense, 3.56. It's just night and day. It's unbelievable, the difference. And then Zach Werenski, 12 goals, 40 points in 24 home games, 3 goals, 11 points in 23 road games. It's just unfathomable, the difference between these two. But Toronto, obviously grading out pretty well offensively. You're going to see a lot of top 9 against top 9, a lot of top 6 against top 6, bottom 6 against bottom 6, Grades out is the highest event game of the night. Toronto won, obviously ridiculous offensive numbers, continue to be insane. They had a great night the other night, fully correlating the top power play unit. It's a top power play unit that has the number 3 advantage on the night. Their power play ranks 10th over the last 10 games, going up against the 16th ranked penalty kill. So yeah, really no reason not to like Toronto 1. They grade out tremendously well. They are the second highest owned line on the slate behind their teammates, Toronto 2. Most of that ownership coming in on Bobby McMann, the highest owned forward on the slate, which is not something I ever expected to say. And then William Nylander at 24%. So the Maple Leafs top 6, outrageously high owned here for both of them. I mean, there's really no reason not to like them here. I think that, especially this top line in a great matchup at 5v5, great underlying metrics. They've been red hot. Nyes kind of, was a little bit quiet there for a few games, got back in the score sheet in a big way with 2 goals the other night. Love Toronto 1 tonight in a really, really good spot against a Blue Jackets team that struggles on the road. And then Daniil Tarasov gets the start. I think that obviously helps a little bit as well. I just want to pull up the ownership, like I kind of just alluded to, the ownership tonight in terms of the forwards. Take a look here. The top 4 in terms of ownership are Bobby McMann, Austin Matthews, William Nylander, and Mitch Marner. You can find Matthew Nyes at about 13th highest owned. So tons of ownership coming in here. It's not like as crazy high as what we saw with Nashville last night, but it's very, very high. But I feel very comfortable getting to a lot of Toronto tonight. Actually, in my DFO head-to-head, a little bit of a spoiler alert. I have a Toronto onslaught, so hopefully the road woes continue here at the Blue Jackets. If I'm not mistaken, though, I'll dig in while you're talking. I feel like the Maple Leafs always seem to have trouble with the Blue Jackets, but maybe it's just only in Columbus. I'm going to dig into the numbers a little bit, but what are you doing with the Toronto Chalk here tonight?
Yeah, it's I got a lot of interest in the Toronto Chalk, I guess. Gonna have to ride with it here tonight, it feels like, because it looks like a smash spot for them. For me, Toronto 1, I think is the great play here. I got a full stack of them in my DFO head-to-head, so had to get them into the mix. Happy to hear that you got a little bit of an onslaught there. Now I'm just kind of hoping that Toronto 2 doesn't go off here tonight on this slate. I think for me, I'm a little bit more comfortable, I think, fading that second line. You take a look at the underlying numbers and the line stats for these guys. It's fairly bleak as a whole with Pontus Holmberg up there, up the middle. That being said, both Bobby McMann and Nylander are popping in the projections tonight as extremely good value plays. So, it's a bit of a double-edged sword there, I suppose, in that sense, where, the line stats don't necessarily say that they've been having a whole lot of success lately, but, the raw projections and even their recent numbers kind of say otherwise, because Bobby McMann has been on an absolute tear. His salary starting to creep up a little bit, coming up to $4K now. 1.5 goals per hour of ice time over his last 20 games, 2.9 points per hour, 9.4 shots on goal per hour of ice time. He's been great, and so is William Nylander too. 1.7 goals per hour, 9.8 shots on goal per hour. So great floors you're getting for both of those guys. Totally understand getting to Toronto 2 tonight. I'll probably have a mini stack of Bobby McMann and Nylander mixed in somewhere in my lineups here tonight. The Blue Jackets, it's really interesting. Again, we talk about these splits all the time. And for me, I think I'm pretty comfortable fading the Blue Jackets entirely here in my 5 max tonight. Who knows? Maybe there's a bit of a risk here in doing so. I think the one line that I kind of have a little bit of interest in is Columbus 3, actually, with that 100 matchup score. Luca Del Bel Belouz has been great so far early on in his NHL career. 3 points in his first 6 games in the NHL. Granted, a goal and an assist in his first game. He had an assist in his second game. Relatively quiet over his last 4, but a couple of shots on goal against the Islanders in his last game. He's really cheap at $2,900. I don't mind the idea of one-offing him, which is what I've done in my DFO head-to-head that we'll get to later. One other player that's kind of jumping out for me from the Blue Jackets perspective tonight is actually Kent Johnson on the Blue Jackets second line. We talk so much about these splits of these home and road splits. One guy who's really not affected by that is Kent Johnson. 18 games at home this year. He's got 7 goals and 18 points, averaging 9.6 DraftKings points per game. And on the road, he's got 6 goals and 9 points in 15 games, averaging 9.6 DraftKings points per game. So he's still finding ways to be productive even when on the road. Coming in at $4,200 and 7.3 projected ownership here tonight for him. I don't mind him as a one-off option either. And the other thing about Kent Johnson too, a lot of success against the Leafs in his young career. 4 goals and 7 points in 6 games for him going up against the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Just back to Luca Del Bel Belouz, which is just an unbelievable name to say. He is also from nearby Toronto, Woodbridge. Apparently grew up about 25 minutes away from the rink. He's going to have upwards of 50 friends and family in attendance tonight. His favorite team growing up, I believe that's what it was reported. So yeah, I think he'll have a little bit of extra juice this evening tonight, or this evening. And yeah, he's been pretty solid, 100% matchup score. I think there's a lot of just kind of things pointing in that direction. If you need a cheap center tonight, I don't mind getting there. Don't know how many Zach Aston Reese, Matthew Olivier lineups I'm going to have. They've been fairly decent this year, but Del Belbelouz looks like a reasonable one-off option if you want to play that narrative game. I don't love, obviously, the Blue Jackets on the road, but man, we talked about it. Like every other game is a 5.5 implied, or 5.5 over under. And this game is 6.5. Like there's reason to expect maybe some fireworks in this game tonight. Like I said, the Blue Jackets have kind of had the Leafs number. They won 6-2 in Columbus earlier in the season. But then if you go back to last year, they met 3 times. The Blue Jackets won 6-5 in overtime, lost 4-1, and then won 6-5 in overtime in the other games. So kind of, a lot of fireworks when these two teams get together. And maybe this is kind of the matchup that the Blue Jackets need to spark something on the road tonight. Now, it's easy to kind of say that, look back at the old games, just say that as a possibility. But the reality is that the top line has just not been nearly as good without Sean Monahan. With Adam Fantilli up there, it's just not been the same. They're not terrible. They're about average on tonight's slate. The matchup's okay. So I'll probably mix them in just because I don't think there's that many other good options on the slate. It's just such a low event, low scoring slate otherwise. And if this game ends up being kind of these traditional Toronto Blue Jackets 6-5 games that we've seen in the past, then yeah, the Blue Jackets are probably going to be in the optimal lineup tonight. And I think, I don't want to be too scared off the road woes, too scared off by the road woes. I'm going to buy in a little bit just because the implied total and the typical high event nature of these two games when these two teams meet up. I just want to see what the Blue Jackets have done on the road recently as it loads extremely slowly. So never mind. Power play for this game. 3rd and 4th best overall. Both teams take a decent amount of penalties as well. Both power plays in the top 10. Both penalty kills about average as of late. What do you think about the, like, you didn't talk too much about the Blue Jackets top line. Are you getting there? Are you kind of cooling on them? Like the Blue Jackets as a whole, the top line coming in at 8%, the second line coming around 9%, and then your third line coming in at 4%. Like they're pretty low owned and they're in the highest event game of the night. I think getting to some Columbus makes a lot of sense tonight, despite them being, very expensive, at least that top line.
Yeah, I did mention that I was kind of comfortable fading them. You maybe have talked me into playing a little bit of them here tonight. As Jim B mentions in the chat, Dennis Hill to be getting the start, might make, things a little bit more interesting there. Hill to be in his first 5 games this season in the NHL, 3 wins in those games, mind you. But he does have an 886 save percentage and a negative 3.1 goals saved above expected. So those are the lowest marks of, any of the goaltenders here tonight. And in one game against the Columbus Blue Jackets, it must have been one of those 6-5 losses because he had a 603 goals against average and an 842 save percentage in that game. So you know what? Maybe fire me up a little bit of Columbus 1 tonight. They're really low owned here. As you mentioned, it is the highest projected total on the slate here tonight. So maybe I'll mix in a little bit of Columbus 1 here. I'll be honest with you though, I don't feel the greatest about that. These splits have kind of seemed to be real so far this season. In the same breath too, a guy like Zach Werenski, we mentioned him, 15 career games against the Toronto Maple Leafs, 14 assists in those games, no goals. He is averaging 8.6 DraftKings points per game, not accounting for any of the bonuses there. So he's obviously been an incredibly productive player for the Blue Jackets this season. Maybe you're talking me into a little bit of him here tonight.
If I recall correctly, I believe that the Toronto Maple Leafs are the only team in the NHL that Zach Werenski has not scored a goal against.
So what you're saying is that hammer a Zach Werenski anytime goal tonight?
Or completely fade it because he never scores against the Leafs. It's one, both, either way, whichever way you feel. Okay, let's get to Colorado and Winnipeg. I got some more juicy stats. Did you know? Now, somebody laughed at me and pointed this out on Twitter because he did struggle against them in the playoffs. But in Connor Hellebuck's last 5 regular season starts against the Avs, including 2 so far this season, he has back-to-back shutouts against them this season. He has stopped 57 of 57 shots against the Avs this year. dating back to April of last year. Again, regular season starts only. He has 3 consecutive shutouts against the Avalanche. In his last 5 regular season starts over the last 2 seasons, he's 5-0 with a .80 goals against average, a .974 save percentage, and 3 shutouts. So yeah, regular season Connor Hellebuck versus the Avalanche has just been unbelievable. So the Avs are still home favorites here, -118, 2.8 implied total for the Winnipeg Jets. I really felt good about the Jets. I really felt good about Connor Hellebuck coming in. And then, honestly, similar to the New Jersey Devils, not in love with the lines here at all from the Winnipeg Jets. Taking Gabe Vilardi off the top line tonight, moving in with Nemestikov and Ehlers. Kupari moves up with Adam Lowry out between Perfetti and Nino Niederreiter. The underlying metrics with those trios are not very good. The top line definitely takes a hit. The second line gets a nice boost with Vilardi there. I think of Vilardi, Ehlers mini stack tonight makes a little bit of sense. As you see here, though, it is the worst matchup on the Blue Jackets top 9. So Jets top 9, excuse me. The Jets top 9 overall, but average matchups across the board. Top 9 for the Avs, much better, but obviously they got to try to actually score on Connor Hellebuck in this one. The top line continues to grade out tremendously well for the Avs. No shocker there. The second line looks okay. It's been very difficult to trust any Casey Middlestad-led line as of late. They did score a few the other night, so maybe they can keep that rolling. But again, with Connor Hellebuck between the pipes, it's hard to really buy into too much there. So yeah, I don't really know what to do with this game. To me, it feels like it's going to be super low scoring. And obviously the price tags on both sides are really expensive. But Colorado 1 grades out 3rd best. Colorado 2 grades out 5th best. And then the new look Winnipeg 1 grades out 9th best overall. Not a ton of ownership coming in on this game. Winnipeg 1 and Winnipeg 2 about 6%. The top line of the Avs about 12%, with McKinnon seeing the majority of the ownership at 18.6%. So, to me, this looks, unless Hellebuck pitches another shutout, this has got 3-2 written all over it, right? I just don't love the look of this game, but there's obviously enough firepower on both sides to where this game, could turn into a bit of a track meet. It just hasn't happened between these two teams as of late. So I don't have a ton of faith that it'll happen, but on a 4-game slate with as much firepower as in this game, I'm going to have some exposure to it, but I'm kind of in agreement with the general public here in staying away from it for the most part. What are you thinking? Tell me you've got a little bit more interest.
I don't know, man. I kind of was thinking about taking a stand on this game and fading any of the players in the forward groups and kind of going with the goaltenders in this game, playing some Blackwood, playing some Hellebuck, and hoping that it is kind of a lower scoring, higher volume sort of a game here. And I'm still kind of leaning towards that way. I've got some intrigue in Winnipeg 1 because of Alex Iafallo up there. He's only $2,700 tonight. He's projecting for 8.4% ownership, which is the highest of any of these guys up there on the top line. He's had some success in his career, about 0.5 point per game against the Colorado Avalanche previously. But Kyle Connor coming in at 3.2% on this slate, he's just too talented of a player for his ownership to be so low as far as I'm concerned. So I think I might mix in a little bit of Winnipeg 1 here tonight and hope that they can maybe find a way to some offensive success. Connor's continuing to be just tremendous for the Jets this year. 1.8 goals per hour over his last 20 games, 4.1 points, and a really solid floor, and thanks to his shot volume as well, with 9.3 shots on goal per hour of ice time. So I don't mind the idea of getting some Winnipeg 1 in the mix here. I'm not sure if I'm going to get down to any of these depth lines in terms of Winnipeg 2 or anything below that. I don't mind the idea, if I was 20 maxing, of playing some Winnipeg 2 here. Ehlers and Vilardi, obviously you got some correlation on the top power play unit there for the Jets, who do have the second best matchup on the entire slate here. The only problem is that the Colorado Avalanche are one of the most disciplined teams in the NHL, only 2.6 times shorthanded per game over their last 10. So I'm not sure, man. It also feels kind of gross to fade the Colorado Avalanche on a 4-game slate because it's the Colorado Avalanche. It's Nathan McKinnon. I mean, he could pop off at any time, but he is seeing about 18% ownership, which I think is, probably pretty fair, I suppose, for just given the player that he is. But even McKinnon, it hasn't quite felt like the McKinnon of old this year to me.
Unless they're scoring on empty nets, they don't really get there.
Yeah, and like his shot volume, like he's still taking 9.5 shots on goal per hour of ice time, but like that's a mark that's down from previous years for him too, right? Ross Colton and Mikko Rantanen, they're not shooting the puck a whole lot themselves. 6.7 and 6.9 shots on goal per hour of ice time, nice. But it is kind of a bit of a weird spot here tonight. The matchup's good. The line stats are obviously good for Colorado here. I'm not sure. This second line, though, like I don't know what your thoughts are on them because their line stats are really popping. 4.5 goals for per hour showing up here on the charts, but they're not really generating a ton of expected goals out there. And it just feels like these are three guys who kind of disappoint me more often than not when it comes to Jonathan Drouin, Casey Middlestat, and Arturi Lehkonen. What are you doing with Colorado too?
Yeah, Middlestad's been terrible for the last couple months, to be honest with you. Like the underlying metrics with pretty much any player on that roster playing with Middlestad, they just plummet. Obviously, it helps when basically if you're not with Middlestad, you're with McKinnon, so like it kind of makes sense. But he's been kind of a dark or a black hole of offense. I do think that Jonathan Drouin has been a real nice bright spot for them. $4,800. Drouin's been solid. Lekkonen's been okay at 53, but he's been even pretty dormant as of late. So yeah, that's not really a line that I have a ton of interest in. Maybe a little bit of Drouin, but that's probably it. I don't mind that top line, Ross Colton, $4,300. I mean, the underlying metrics are so strong that it's hard to completely ignore them. But again, probably coming in around 10% for them, and that's about it. And then on the Winnipeg side, same thing, probably 10% on the top line, maybe a little bit more. Might be a little bit more interested in Winnipeg too, honestly, just because they're so cheap, right? Ehlers at 51 and Velarde at 4,900, 10,000 for those two. Feels really good. Solid shot volume. You've got that power play correlation. You don't have to pay up like crazy for Kyle Connor and Mark Scheifele to still get exposure to that power play. I think that Ehlers and Velarde, that mini stack makes a lot of sense to me and one that I'm really interested in. So I think that's probably going to be the majority of my Winnipeg exposure tonight because the price tag is too good. But yeah, I mean, with Blackwood and Hellebuck between the pipes, I mean, these are two. Besides Logan Thompson, these are the two best goalies in the league right now for the last little bit. So Blackwood's been unbelievable since getting traded to the Avs. Hellebuck's been unbelievable all season long. And then Logan Thompson. Like these are the three best goalies in the league at the current moment, all playing unbelievable. And yeah, Blackwood and Hellebuck showed again tonight. It's like, how is there going to be that many goals in this game? It's kind of hard to be super, super interested. And as somebody pointed out in the chat, Colorado's PP is still poop. That's a sentence. I agree. 31st over the last 10 games going up against the 8th ranked penalty kill. It's also a very disciplined Winnipeg Jets team. So the power play just not really doing much. Colorado too, not the same without Nichushkin, 100%. This whole team's not the same without Nichushkin. They also announced today that he suffered a setback. He's going to be out week to week. Yeah, this game is a little tough for me, but there's a lot of firepower. I'm still going to get there, probably more so than the next game, but still not a ton of exposure. What any final thoughts for you on Colorado Winnipeg before we move on to game number 4?
No, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head here. This last game is I don't know about this one, man. This feels like it's going to be a bit of an ugly game.
Yeah, the Panthers second half of back-to-back. The Kings, we all know, very good defensively, pretty meh offensively. They are small home favorites. Implied total 2.9. Implied total for the Panthers of 2.8. Matchups for both sides. Yikes. Hard to really tell what the Kings are going to do. We projected to see a lot of Byfield against Crosby the other night. It was a lot of Kopitar versus Crosby. They haven't obviously played the Panthers in Los Angeles this year, so in a similar style kind of build that the Panthers have, this is what they went with, a little bit more of a balanced approach with a little bit more of Deneau and of Byfield against the Barkov line, and then freeze up the Kopitar line a little bit. I mean, the offensive metrics on both sides are good. But so are the defensive metrics. So to me, I don't think I'm going to be doing a lot of full stacking in this game. I once again think that there's, some decent pieces of both sides, that are strong value options. I think Jordan Spence, obviously top power play quarterback for the Kings, continues to be a strong value. I think he's $2,600. Nate Schmidt's a fine value option on the Panthers blue line as well, as he continues to operate PP1 for them. I really liked Florida 3 last night. Verhaeghe was great. I think running it back with them with these underlying metrics is a fine play. Obviously, on the Kings side of things, that top or that second line still has pretty good underlying metrics. You've still got very cheap options there with Fogle, with Kopitar, or not Kopitar, Byfield, and now Trevor Moore moving up there. The second line, or the third line, the Dano line continues to grade out tremendously well, just not actually capitalizing on any of their chances. Kevin Fiala has been awesome in terms of the shot volume, not necessarily converting on all of his chances, though. So it's tough, man. Like, this top line grades out fourth best for the Florida Panthers. The rest of the group, rest of this game, between 10 and 15. So kind of just middling, but plenty of ownership coming in on this one. And it feels like by far the lowest event game of the night. Maybe it's just the value aspect of it all. I just want to pull up the shot attempts. So Spencer Knight projected for 26 shots against, Kemper projected for 27. So two of the lower volume goalies on the slate. It's hard to really project this as a super high paced game, and finding the correct stack is difficult. I do think that there's a reasonable amount of value on this slate, to the point where Florida 1 is in play at 23,000 at just 4% ownership. They feel like the one that I want to maybe take a chance on as a contrarian option, because there's plenty of ownership coming in on the LA side of things tonight. So probably going to plant my flag a little bit on Florida 1 and probably come in under the field on LA. Probably means that LA is going to nuke the slate, because we were all in on them the other night in a great matchup, and now we're going to be off of them in a terrible matchup, and then they're going to somehow win 5-1.
I know. I feel that coming too, and I'm. There's no doubt about it. I am ready to get hurt again by the LA Kings. Because seems like that is all that happens. How many years, like the last couple of years, we played so much of that, like LA2, LA3 lines, and they've smashed for us so much. Like, they have just absolutely failed us this season. This chalk that's coming in, and I guess we can call it chalk, coming in on the Kings second and third lines, it kind of scares me a little bit, because they grade out LA3 is the 14th best line to target, LA2 coming in as the 15th. They're right within that realm of the top 15 that I try and keep my lineups in. But I kind of agree with you here. Like, I am kind of really interested in this Florida 1 line. You've got all three of Matthew Tkachuk, Alexander Barkov, and Sam Reinhart under $8,000. When was the last time that's happened on a regular basis? I mean, it's been quite a while, right? Obviously the volume hasn't quite been there. Sam Reinhart is continuing to score goals. The offense has kind of dried up as of late for Matthew Tkachuk and Alexander Barkov, but these are still three extremely talented players. Like, these are three of the best players, in the entire NHL. Matthew Tkachuk in his career, he's had some success against the Kings, 6 goals, 15 points in 22 games. Alexander Barkov, 7 goals, 18 points in 16 games played. Sam Reinhart, 3 goals, 9 points in 16 games. So I think I'm going to get to some of this Florida 1 here tonight, get a little bit different from the field. Florida 3, I think I've got a little bit of interest in them. They almost won me the slate last night. Could have used a little bit more offense from them late in that game, and it could have been a very solid night for me. So I don't think I mind getting back to the well here on a little bit of Florida 3 as well. In terms of the Kings, I really don't know what to do with them, man. Like, they're seeing so much ownership that I kind of feel obligated to play a bit of them, but it feels like a really ugly kind of matchup here. I'm not entirely certain what I'm going to do here tonight. I think, if I do end up fading the Kings on the main slate, I'll probably hammer them on some showdown lineups tonight. With that being the last game of the night, I think that's a route that I might try and go, just in terms of looking at the slate as a whole here tonight. I really don't know what to do with the Kings, man. I really am not sure what to do with them.
To me, I think the top line's interesting, right? Best matchup of the group. Obviously, it's not great, but 41% of the ice time up against Florida 3. That Florida 3 line has struggled defensively. Not terrible, but not great. Adrian Kempe obviously leading the way for the Kings. He's got the best plus 155 anytime goal is the lowest mark in this game, or best odds in this game, I should say. He's averaging the most DraftKings points per game over the last 10 for this team by a mile, 13. The second is Kevin Fiala at 8.9. And Turcotte's been really solid, 5th best on the team at just $2,900. So that maybe a Kempe Turcotte mini, Kopitar is still kind of difficult to trust, right? Doesn't shoot the puck inside the floors, basically around 1.5 shots, 1 block per game type thing. The assist upside is great, but not a whole lot of goal scoring upside. So To me, I think that LA1's probably where most of my interest comes in here at 8.6%. They're also the lowest owned of the group. They grade out the best. I think that's kind of the route that I'm going to go with LA. I don't mind still running it back with a little bit of Quinton Byfield, Jordan Spence mini stack. I did a lot of that the other night. Just so cheap. And Byfield at $3,800, cheap center that's going to play 20 minutes tonight. So I don't mind that little like filler mini stack if you need to get that to go that route. So probably most of the LA1 and then Byfield for me is the way I'm targeting the Kings tonight. But yeah, I'm hoping that it ends up being a 2-1 Florida win tonight and the 15% LA Kings kind of bust like they did for us the other night. So that's the way I'm going. Just before I get to you, I just want to talk about the power play really quick here. 5th and 6th best power play advantages. Both power plays kind of struggling at the moment. Both penalty kills pretty solid, but both teams take the most penalties on the slate tonight. So it could be plenty of opportunities for both teams on the power play tonight, despite both units being kind of meh as of late.
So last 6 games between these two teams dating back to December 2021, the Kings are 5-1. The last game, most recent game was last January. The Kings had a 3-2 loss in overtime, 2-1 win, 4-3 win, 5-4 win, 3-2 win in the shootout, and a 4-1 win. So under 5.5 has cashed in for the last 6 between these two teams.
Not surprising.
It's not surprising at all. Kind of feels like that's going to be what this game is again here tonight. Some higher volume in terms of the shot totals for both of these teams in these games. So, maybe going the goaltending route is kind of the play here tonight. Looking at Spencer Knight and Darcy Kemper, I do have Kemper in my head-to-head here tonight. I needed some salary saving in the crease, and it felt like of the cheaper options that are available tonight, he was the best of the bunch. I think it's worth noting too that like over the last 10 games for both of these teams, there has been like shit all in terms of goal scoring at 5-on-5. The LA Kings 2.13 goals for per hour. The Florida Panthers 1.9 goals for per hour. Second and third lowest marks on the entire slate here tonight behind the New Jersey Devils. I don't know, man.
Super good defensively too.
Yeah, 100%. Right. So I'm leaning towards this being a lower scoring game. When it comes to the Kings, I might just throw a couple of one-offs in the mix into some of my other lineups tonight. Kevin Fiala, $5,900, 10.4 shots on goal per hour of ice time, gives you a really solid floor there. Adrian Kempe at 6,400. I don't mind that either. Maybe I'll go back with a little Byfield Fogle mini stack, as you had mentioned, as a potential option as well. Fogle drawing the second lowest ownership of anybody in the top 9 for the Kings at 6.9%. Nice. I think that might be the way that I kind of play the Kings on the main slate.
I mean, the more you talk about it, the more we talk about these games, like how much more now going back to the first game of the night, do you feel better about getting to some Columbus now?
Yeah, honestly, I think that's a great point, man. I actually think that after we've broken all of these games down here, I think I'm going to get to some Columbus 1 here because it really feels kind of ugly in some of these other games here.
Their road woes might be, just that, but I mean, at least they're not in games that look like they're going to be 2-1 hockey games. So, New Jersey now feels way better. I like them a lot now. It's after you're breaking them down, you just feel significantly better about New Jersey, about Columbus, obviously the Leafs, obviously in just a tremendous spot coming in. Okay, let's get to the goalies before the defensemen because you kind of brought them up already. That's the wrong tap. Kemper at $7,400. Being a home favorite against a team on a back-to-back feels great. I don't necessarily view this back-to-back the same as other ones, right? LA, Anaheim, they probably didn't even leave the hotel. Went back to bed at the same hotel and then woke up and, he went to LA. But still, $7,400, the way that he's played as of late, obviously coming off maybe his worst performance in a while, but prior to that, he's just been unbelievable since the start of December, 9-2-2 with a 936 save percentage. Been that, just so good in a game where we don't expect a lot of goals. At $7,400, feels like a terrific play. Connor Hellebuck talked about how good he's been against the Avs. I think at $7,600, probably going to see some of, if not the most volume. He's projected for the most volume on the slate. Obviously, a guy that can just stand on his head. We know that he's done it against the Avs before too. So I think those two as cheaper options are great plays tonight. The most expensive play that I'll probably get to is Markstrom against the Bruins. I think that he's played really, really well. I think that's a game the Devils probably win tonight. So for me, mostly Kemper, Markstrom, and Hellebuck this evening. I don't necessarily hate getting to Spencer Knight. Again, that game looks pretty low scoring. I don't mind getting to Knight and Blackwood. I just don't like that side quite as much. And then if you want to try to go full contrarian and full leverage, it would be the Blue Jackets goalie. Whether it ends up being Merzlikins or whether it ends up being Tarasov tonight remains to be seen. But that would be kind of your super leverage play and hope for the best, but doesn't feel great considering the rest of these games look pretty low scoring. So long story short, Hellebuck, Markstrom, and Kemper are the three that I like the most. How about you, Zach?
Yeah, I can get behind those guys for sure. I think I've got a little bit less interest in Markstrom than you do. One thing that's really kind of interesting, Jeremy Swayman in his career against the New Jersey Devils, 3 games played, 2 wins, 1 shutout, 1.3 goals against average, and a 958 save percentage. Far and away the best historical numbers of any goaltender on the slate going up against the opposing team. So, maybe that's an option down there at $7,500. I don't know if I feel the greatest about it. I think I like Kemper at 7,400. I don't think I'm going to have any problem mixing in a little bit of Spencer Knight tonight here on this slate. I also think I like Hellebuck and Blackwood here tonight. I don't know, man. It feels like just a bit of a really gross slate overall. I'm just hoping and praying I can find some ways across the cash line tonight.
Let's get back to the defenseman. Take a step back here for a moment. In terms of value tonight, I've talked about Jake McCabe sticks out yet again. Oliver Ekman-Larsson sticks out again. Brett Pesce sticks out again. Gustav Forsling's price dropped $600 overnight, which is unbelievable. I can definitely get behind that. Jordan Spence looks incredible. Where is he at? Did I miss him? Dylan Sandberg, there he is at $2,800 has been providing a tremendous floor. I like him as well. A lot of good cheap defensemen on tonight's slate, though. You're not going to have any trouble finding somebody to kind of round out your lineup. Anybody that I didn't mention that really sticks out to you, Zach?
Not really. Chris Tanev's kind of popping in terms of the value as well. Just a shot block god over there in Toronto. Jake McCabe looks great. I mean, over his last 10 games, he's averaging 9.8 DraftKings points per game. He's had a 30-point game. He's had a 19-point game in that stretch of time. So he's hitting some really high ceiling games for him. Gustav Forsling dropping in price to $4,200. I really like the look of that one there because it does seem like, based off those last 6 games, as I mentioned, a lot of shots between the two teams in those games. So he's obviously a guy who loves to shoot the pill, 8.3 shots on goal per hour of ice time over his last 20 games. Couple of payoff options I don't mind. I think I like getting to Dougie Hamilton here at $5,800. The Devils power play looks to be in a great spot. He's somebody who's continuing to provide a solid floor night in and night out. Do we want to get up to the really expensive guys on the blue line tonight? Zach Werenski, Cale Makar. I'm not entirely sure if you need to get up there tonight personally. But obviously they're great players in their own right. Granted, Zach Werenski not necessarily on the road this season. So lots of great options out there tonight.
Couple in the chat. Eric says Mason Lowride looks pretty good at $3,500. Yeah, top power play unit quarterback there. Just a bit of a difficult matchup against the Devils. Liking Zadorov with McAvoy out at $2,700. Yeah, there's a couple other guys I was going to mention that have been playing pretty well. Dante Fabro, $3,900. Bit of a volume hound himself. Nikita Zadorov at $2,700, and then Ivan Provorov as well. Mason Lowride has been pretty good too. Let's get to today's Hat-Trick Pick Challenge. If you want to participate in today's Hat-Trick Pick Challenge, comment your Hat-Trick Pick in the comment section of the video, not the live chat. So once the video ends, you can get your picks in. And if your player scores a hat-trick tonight, we'll get you a $25 gift card to Nation Gear. Don't forget, we give away a $50 gift card to Nation Gear every single Friday. So if you want to pop in on Friday, drop a comment, you can win a $50 gift card live on the show. So think about who you want to pick for your Hat-Trick Pick tonight. We'll come back to that after our head-to-head. I won yesterday's head-to-head challenge thanks to the Nashville Chalk. Also, Logan Thompson between the pipes. That great leverage against your Edmonton Oilers worked out well. So I'm the first to get to 30 on the season, 30 and 28 this year. I mentioned it earlier. I went with the onslaught stack here of Matthews, Marner, Nyes, Nylander, Bobby McMahon from the Toronto Maple Leafs. And then that left me with that kind of mini stack I talked about with Byfield and Spence. I had a ton of them the other night. Didn't go well, so I know if I don't play them tonight, they're going to light it up. So I'm going to run it back with Byfield and Spence tonight. Dylan Sandberg's been a really solid value option, tremendous floor as of late in that Winnipeg game. And then I got Jacob Markstrom between the pipes. Feels like the guy that's most likely to lock up a W tonight against the Bruins team that's not playing all that well as of late. So that's my lineup. Zach, who you got?
Yeah, obviously wanted to get the Toronto Maple Leafs in there, so on with that full stack at the top line. Matthews, Marner, Nyes, they look like they're in great spots here tonight. Little New Jersey 2 exposure and a little power play 1 exposure with Stefan Nation, Dougie Hamilton mini stack there. Don't mind that. Went with a couple of one-off options for a couple of cheap guys here. Luca Del Bel Belouz, mentioned him. Looks like he's in a good spot with a great matchup score here tonight, $2,900. Outside follow, getting that bump up to the top line for the Winnipeg Jets. Welcome to the team, buddy. And then this is where it kind of got a little bit interesting for me. I can't remember who I had in the goaltender first. Let me see if I can remember who it was. I think I was trying to get Hellebuck in there at first, but the options for the defenseman didn't feel great in the high 4K range. So I paid down a little bit more, or dropped a little bit of salary down to Darcy Kemper. That afforded me an extra couple of $100 to get up to some Devon Taves. He's continuing to find ways to be productive for the Colorado Avalanche. Obviously spending a lot of his time on the top pairing with Cale Makar and the top line of the Avalanche. Let's see if they can get it done tonight. I don't know. We'll see what the hell happens with this slate.
My hat trick pick tonight is going to be, it's got to come from the Toronto or New Jersey side of things. Give me Austin Matthews.
Low-hanging fruit, eh?
That's what happens when you win the head-to-head.
That's right. Well, then I'm going to go off the board here. Let's go with Nick Ehlers, Winnipeg 2. In his career going up against Colorado, 14 goals and 28 points in 27 games played. Clearly loves to play against the Avs. So let's see if he can get it done for me tonight.
I plan on having a lot of Winnipeg 2 in my lineup tonight, so I hope you are right. Just a quick question before we head out here. Mark said, any word on why Merzlikins left the skate early this morning? Yeah, he was in some discomfort, left the skate. They did not announce whether or not he's going to be available or not tonight. We will find out probably when warm-ups get underway. And then from Beebs, another quick update here. He's going to be on the fourth line tonight. It's not a huge deal for DFS, but Mason Appleton will return to the Jets lineup this evening. Okay. Comment your hat trick pick in the comment section of the video on YouTube. Also, while you're there, smash that like button for us. Really helps us grow the show, helps us grow this channel as well. And yeah, if you want us to be able to continue to bring you this stuff for free, smashing the like button helps a lot. And while you're there, in the description of the video, a couple things. You can join rotogrinders.com, who provided projected ownership for today's show. You can get $20 off your first month of RotoGrinders NHL Premium by clicking the link in the description. And thank you to them for the projected ownership. It really leveled up the show. Helps us a lot with this show. So thank you to rotogrinders.com. And you can also join the DFS Discord. Links in the description. And join the community that's growing every single day. We're talking DFS all day long. And we also provide all the late breaking news, any line changes, which there was a couple yesterday. Hopefully you were in. Got JJ Peterka in for Zucker, stuff like that. Because that would have been huge, and you cashing last night. So yeah, join the DFS Discord to stay up to date and make sure you have no holes in your lineup until tomorrow. Best of luck tonight. Hopefully you return with more money in your bankroll tomorrow than you had tonight. Massive slate tomorrow. Going to be a lot of fun. Until then, cheers.
Cheers.